Welcome to Prajapati Educational Institute. Today, we bring you the inspiring journey of Neil Armstrong, the first human to set foot on the moon. From a small-town boy with big dreams to a legendary astronaut, his story is one of courage, science, and a giant leap for mankind. What drove him to reach the stars? What did he feel in that silent moment on the moon? Join us as we explore the incredible life of the man who made history in space and inspired generations on Earth. Get ready for launch. Part 1: Early Life and Love for Flying. Neil Armstrong was born on 5th August 1930 in a small town called Wapakoneta in the state of Ohio, USA. From the time he was a little boy, Neil loved airplanes. When he was just 2 years old, his father took him to watch airplane races. He was amazed. That moment started a love for flying that would last all his life. Neil's father, Stephen Armstrong, worked for the government, and his job required the family to move to different places. So, Neil went to many different schools. Even though he changed schools often, he was always a smart and quiet student. He read a lot of books and loved math and science. These two subjects helped him learn more about how planes and machines worked. When Neil was just 15 years old, he started taking flying lessons at a nearby airfield. He earned his pilot's license at age 16, even before he got a driver's license. This was a big achievement for someone so young. He enjoyed flying small planes and often flew alone. After finishing high school, Neil got a scholarship from the US Navy to study aeronautical engineering at Purdue University in Indiana. Aeronautical engineering is the study of designing and building airplanes. But before finishing his college education, the Korean War started in 1950. The US Navy called Neil to duty, and he served as a Navy pilot. During the war, Neil flew 78 combat missions in a plane called the F-9F Panther. He showed bravery and skill, especially in dangerous situations. On one mission, his plane was badly damaged by enemy fire. He managed to fly it safely away before ejecting and landing in a rice field. After the war, Neil returned to Purdue and completed his college degree. Next, Neil joined the National Advisory Committee for Aeronautics, NACA, which would later become NASA. He worked as a test pilot at Edwards Air Force Base in California. A test pilot flies new or experimental aircraft to see how they perform. This job was very risky, but Neil loved it. He flew over 200 different aircraft, including high-speed jets and rocket-powered planes like the X-15, which flew at the edge of space. In 1962, NASA selected Neil to become an astronaut. He was calm, skilled, and smart, qualities needed for space missions. He joined the second group of astronauts and began intense training, flying in zero gravity, learning how to control spacecraft, and preparing for space emergencies. Neil's first space mission came in 1966 as the commander of Gemini 8. He and astronaut David Scott had to connect their spacecraft to another vehicle in orbit, called Agena. The docking worked, but soon after, the spacecraft started spinning out of control. Neil stayed calm, took control, and safely brought the spacecraft back to Earth. His quick thinking saved their lives. This mission showed NASA that Neil was ready for even greater challenges. He was soon chosen to lead Apollo 11, the mission that would try to land humans on the moon for the first time in history. Part 2: The Apollo 11 Moon Landing. In July 1969, Millions of people around the world were watching their televisions and listening to their radios. They were waiting for history to be made. NASA was about to send 3 men to the moon. The crew of Apollo 11 included Neil Armstrong as the commander, Buzz Aldrin as the lunar module pilot, and Michael Collins as the command module pilot. On 16 July 1969, Apollo 11 launched from Kennedy Space Center in Florida. The rocket that carried them into space was called the Saturn V, the most powerful rocket ever built. After reaching space, the spacecraft traveled over 384,000 kilometers, 238,855 miles, to the moon. The journey took about 3 days. Once they reached the moon, Neil and Buzz moved into a smaller spacecraft called the lunar module, also known as Eagle. Michael Collins stayed in the command module, called Columbia, which continued orbiting the moon. On 20th July 1969, Neil and Buzz began their descent toward the moon's surface. The landing was very challenging. As they were about to land, Neil noticed that the computer was guiding them to a rocky area. He took manual control of the lunar module and carefully steered it to a safer place. Fuel was running low, and there were only 20 seconds left when he finally landed the craft. He calmly spoke the famous words, "Houston, Tranquility Base here. The Eagle has landed." This simple message meant that humans had successfully landed on the moon. A few hours later, Neil Armstrong became the first human to walk on the moon. As he stepped down the ladder, he said the historic sentence, "That's one small step for man, one giant leap for mankind." People all over the world watched in awe as Neil walked on the moon's surface. He described the soil as very fine and powdery. Soon after, Buzz Aldrin joined him. The two astronauts spent 2 hours and 36 minutes walking on the moon. They collected rock and soil samples, took photographs, and placed scientific instruments. They also planted the American flag and left behind a plaque that read, "Here men from the planet Earth first set foot upon the moon, July 1969 AD. We came in peace for all mankind." After their walk, Neil and Buzz returned to the lunar module and rested. The next day, they took off from the moon's surface and rejoined Michael Collins. The crew then began the journey back to Earth. Apollo 11 safely landed in the Pacific Ocean on 24th July 1969. The astronauts were welcomed as national and global heroes. They had completed the greatest journey in human history. Newspapers, radios, and televisions all over the world praised their courage and success. Neil Armstrong's name became known everywhere. Though he was now world famous, Neil stayed quiet and humble. He always said that the moon landing was the result of hard work by over 400,000 people who had worked on the Apollo project. He didn't take all the credit for himself. He called himself just a pilot doing his job. Part 3. Life after the Moon and Lasting Legacy. After the Apollo 11 mission, Neil Armstrong took part in a world tour, visiting many countries to share the success of the moon landing. People everywhere cheered for him, and leaders of many nations wanted to meet him. But Neil was never comfortable being a celebrity. He was a private and simple man who preferred peace and quiet. In 1971, Neil left NASA. He decided to focus on teaching and became a professor of aerospace engineering at the University of Cincinnati. He loved teaching students about flight, science, and engineering. He often told his students to stay curious and work hard. Neil worked as a professor for 8 years and inspired many young minds. He also worked on various government committees and space programs. He helped investigate the Apollo 13 accident and later served on the team that looked into the Challenger space shuttle disaster in 1986. Neil was always careful and thoughtful in his work. He believed in safety, responsibility, and learning from mistakes. Neil stayed out of the spotlight for most of his life. He rarely gave interviews and didn't enjoy being on TV. He believed that the moon landing was not just about him, it was about what humans could achieve when they worked together. He was proud to be part of something so big and meaningful. Over the years, Neil received many awards and honors. These included Presidential Medal of Freedom, 1978, Congressional Space Medal of Honor, 1978, Congressional Gold Medal, 2009. He was also honored by space agencies and universities around the world. Despite all the praise, he remained quiet and respectful. Neil enjoyed spending time with his family, reading, and working on his farm. He sometimes flew small planes and took part in space-related events. In later years, he supported the idea of going back to the moon and even to Mars, but he also believed such missions needed careful planning. Sadly, Neil Armstrong passed away on 25 August 2012 after complications from heart surgery. He was 82 years old. His death made people around the world pause and remember the man who had taken the first steps on the moon. NASA, world leaders, astronauts, and millions of people shared messages of respect. US President Barack Obama said, Neil Armstrong was a hero not just of his time, but of all time. His family asked people to look at the moon and wink in Neil's honor. Many did. Neil Armstrong's legacy lives on. Schools, museums, and even airports are named after him. His journey showed that with hard work, courage, and teamwork, people can reach beyond the sky. If this story inspired you, please hit like, share, and subscribe button. For more extraordinary stories, stay tuned to my channel. Thank you for watching.